The Galactic Federation's assessment chamber had never seen such a peculiar case. 342 species representatives sat in tiered rows, their varied anatomies housed in environmental suits of countless designs, all focused on the small delegation standing in the center of the vast amphitheater. Humans, the latest species to achieve faster-than-light travel, and perhaps the most confounding. High Assessor Vikstall adjusted her crystalline sensory arrays, studying the 5 human representatives with growing frustration. They stood there, seemingly at ease, despite being surrounded by the most powerful gathering of sentient species in the known galaxy. Their vital signs showed elevated stress responses, yet their behavior remained calm, collected, and utterly diplomatic. I must ask again. Vikstall's translator conveyed her harmonics into standard galactic basic. How did your species achieve spaceflight without developing dedicated warrior castes? Sarah Chen, the lead human representative, smiled, an expression that still unnerved many of the chamber's occupants. As we've stated, High Assessor, our civilization evolved through cooperation and scientific advancement. We haven't had a global military conflict in over a century. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Raxthi delegation, with their impressive array of natural weapons, chittered in disbelief. The mayor, legendary for their strategic minds, huddled in consultation. Impossible, declared Sub-Assessor Karn of the militant Jarkshian Empire. Our preliminary surveys classified your world as Death Class 7. The environmental pressures alone should have produced a warrior species. Your gravity, atmospheric composition, predator diversity, geological instability. Everything about Earth screams evolution of combat-ready beings. Sarah's colleague, Dr. James Okonjo, stepped forward. With respect, Sub-Assessor, those very pressures drove us to cooperate, not conquer. When your environment is trying to kill you, you learn to work together pretty quickly. The chamber erupted in debate. Vikstall's crystalline form sparkled with agitation as she called for order. When the chaos subsided, she focused her sensors on the humans again. Yet your historical records, the ones you've shared, show countless conflicts. Yes, Sarah acknowledged, we fought. We still have disagreements. But we learned, we adapted, we grew. Our greatest achievements came not from warfare, but from overcoming challenges together. A new voice cut through the chamber. Administrator Zeph of the archival cast, their floating data matrix glowing softly. I have analyzed the technological submission package from Earth. Their advancement pattern is unusual. They developed medical science before perfecting weapons. Their space program began as a scientific endeavor, not a military one. Even their first global communication network was created to share knowledge. The humans stood quietly as the chamber processed this information. Sarah could see the confusion, the disbelief, and in some cases, the beginning of understanding in the varied expressions and postures of the assembled species. But surely, pressed Karn, your species must have some natural weapons, some evolutionary advantage that explains your survival. Dr. Maya Patel, the team's xenobiologist, answered this time. Our advantage is adaptation itself. We can survive in almost any environment on our world, from frozen tundra to burning deserts. We can eat almost anything, learn almost anything, live almost anywhere. We didn't need to become the strongest or the fastest. We became the most versatile. The chamber fell silent. It was Vikstall who finally spoke again, her crystalline form shifting in what the humans had learned to recognize as deep thought. Your application for Federation membership includes extensive requests for scientific and cultural exchange programs, but almost nothing in terms of military alliance proposals. This is unprecedented. Because that's not why we're here, Sarah stated firmly. We want to learn, to share knowledge, to help solve problems. Yes, we can fight if we must. Our history proves that. But it's not who we are, not what drives us. As the first session of assessment drew to a close, the human delegation left the chamber amid a buzz of discussion. They didn't see Administrator Zeph approaching High Assessor Vikstall. didn't hear the quiet exchange that would shape humanity's future in the Federation. Their psychological profiles, Zeph's data matrix pulsed, show something remarkable. They're not peaceful because they're weak. They're peaceful because they're strong enough not to need violence as a first resort. Vixtel's crystalline form shimmered in agreement. Perhaps we have been measuring strength by the wrong metrics all along. Outside the chamber, Sarah and her team prepared for the days of questioning ahead. They knew it wouldn't be easy to explain humanity to a galaxy that categorized species as either warriors or non-warriors, but they were ready for the challenge. After all, adapting to new situations was what humans did best. What they didn't yet realize was that their presence in the Federation would soon be tested in ways none of them could have anticipated, and humanity's true strength would be revealed not in their ability to wage war, but in their capacity to find solutions where others saw only conflict. 6 months after humanity's admission into the Galactic Federation, the outpost of New Haven went dark. Then Outpost Sigma 7. Then 3 more frontier colonies in rapid succession. Each time, the pattern was the same. All communications ceased without warning, without distress signals, without any indication of what had occurred. In the Federation's crisis response chamber, holographic displays showed the spreading wave of silence across the galaxy's outer rim. High Commander Xarl of the Jarkshin Defense Fleet gestured at the map with one of his 4 arms, mandibles clicking in frustration. 5 colonies lost, and we still have no idea what we're facing, he growled. Our patrol fleets find nothing but empty stations, no signs of battle, no debris fields, no radiation signatures, nothing. Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's crisis response liaison, studied the data streams flowing through her neural interface. Something about the pattern nagged at her consciousness, like a half-remembered dream. Commander, have we analyzed the atmospheric compositions of the affected stations after the incidents? Irrelevant, snapped Sub-Commander Vess of the Raxthi. This is clearly the work of a new weapons system. We should be focusing on military response options. But Administrator Zeph's data matrix pulsed with interest. Actually, we have that data. It showed minor variations in gas composition, but nothing significant enough to warrant investigation given the more pressing concerns. May I? Sarah gestured at the main holographic display. When granted access, she began overlaying atmospheric analysis data from each station. Look at the pattern. Each station shows a slight increase in certain organic compounds after going dark. Individually, they seem random, but together. Dr. James Okonjo, who had joined the crisis team as a xenobiologist consultant, suddenly straightened in his chair. It's a metabolic signature, he breathed. Sarah, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Termites, she nodded, or something very similar. The alien representatives stared at them in confusion. Zeph's matrix swirled with curiosity. Please explain this termites reference. James took over the display, pulling up biological data from Earth's archives. On our world, there are insects that can consume entire wooden structures without any external signs of damage until it's too late. They work from the inside out, leaving the surface intact while hollowing out the interior. The only warning signs are subtle changes in the environment, like altered atmospheric composition from their digestive processes. But these are space stations, Carl objected, made of metal and composites, not organic materials. True, Sarah agreed, but the principle might be the same. What if we're not looking for ships or weapons? What if we're looking for something that infiltrates and consumes from within? The chamber erupted in discussions and arguments, but Sarah was already working with the holographic interface, compiling data. Look at the progression of colony disappearances. They're not following normal space lanes or strategic targets. They're following resource concentrations. James finished. Specifically, stations with the highest densities of certain rare metals and compounds. Administrator Zeph's matrix pulsed rapidly as they processed the data. This matches no known species profile in our databases. Because we've been looking for warriors, Sarah said quietly. for ships and weapons and armies. But some of the most devastating forces on Earth weren't warriors at all. They were consumers, organisms that could strip entire areas bare, leaving nothing behind but altered atmospheric compounds and empty shells. High Commander Xarl's expression shifted to something approaching respect. "How do you fight such an enemy?" "First, we have to find them," James said. "And thanks to their metabolic signature, we now can. But fighting them might not be the answer at all." Sarah nodded. "On Earth, when we faced similar challenges, the solution wasn't always to kill the organisms. Sometimes it was about understanding their behavior patterns, their needs, and finding ways to redirect them. Every living thing has preferences, aversions, and alternatives." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. It was Administrator Zeph who finally spoke. "You're suggesting we try to communicate with whatever is consuming our colonies. I'm suggesting we need to understand what we're dealing with before we decide how to deal with it," Sarah replied. "Humanity learned the hard way that rushing into conflict without understanding often makes things worse, not better." As the crisis response chamber buzzed with renewed purpose, Sarah and James exchanged knowing looks. The real work was just beginning, and humanity's experience with Earth's countless challenges might prove more valuable than any warship or weapon. They would need every bit of human ingenuity, adaptability, and understanding to face what was coming. What they didn't know then was that this crisis would reshape the Federation's understanding not just of humanity, but of intelligence itself, and challenge everyone's definition of what makes a species truly dangerous. The Federation's research hub Omega hummed with activity. 3 weeks had passed since the discovery of the metabolic signature, and the massive space station had been transformed into an unprecedented collaborative laboratory. Holographic displays filled the central chamber with swirling data patterns, while specimens of station materials floated in containment fields. Dr. Maya Patel stood before the assembled team of multi-species scientists, her hands moving through the holographic representation of their latest discovery. "We're calling them meta-consumers," she explained. "They're not exactly alive in the way we traditionally define it, but they're not simple machines either." The specimen rotating in the main display looked deceptively simple, a crystalline structure that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Administrator Zeph's data matrix pulsed with concern as they observed it. "The specimen's consumption rate is disturbing. That's actually the key to understanding them," Sarah Chen interjected, stepping forward. "They don't just consume materials, they transform them. Each meta-consumer is essentially a self-replicating molecular factory." Dr. James Okonjo pulled up a new set of data streams. "We've identified 3 crucial aspects of their behavior. First, they're attracted to specific molecular structures, particularly the rare metals used in quantum computing cores. Second, they communicate with each other through quantum entanglement, which explains why we never detected conventional signals. And third, this is the interesting part, they're actually trying to build something." The assembled scientists stirred at this revelation. High Commander Xarl, who had remained skeptical of the research-focused approach, leaned forward. "Build what?" Maya manipulated the hologram, expanding it to show the molecular structures left behind at the consumed stations. "We're not entirely sure yet, but the pattern is consistent across all affected sites. They're not just breaking down materials, they're rearranging them into increasingly complex quantum structures." "Like a quantum computer?" asked one of the mere scientists. "More like a quantum civilization," Sarah corrected. "We think they're not invaders or weapons, they're colonists. But their concept of colonization is fundamentally different from ours. They don't build structures, they transform existing ones into habitats that operate on a quantum level." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs, but James raised his hand for attention. "This is actually good news. Because once we understood this, we realized we don't need to destroy them. We just need to give them a better alternative." Maya took over again, bringing up a new holographic model. "We've designed what we're calling a quantum architecture matrix. It's essentially a prefabricated quantum habitat that's more efficient than what they can create by consuming our stations. Think of it like offering someone a fully furnished house instead of making them build one from scratch. The key insight, Sarah added, came from Earth's history of dealing with similar challenges. When faced with species that seemed destructive, we often found that providing alternative habitats was more effective than trying to eliminate them. We're not just applying that principle here, we're scaling it up to a quantum level. Administrator Zeph's matrix swirled with rapid calculations. The resource requirements for such structures would be enormous. Less than rebuilding destroyed colonies, James pointed out. And we found a way to create them using materials the meta-consumers actually reject. It's sustainable and, more importantly, it's mutual beneficial. The human team proceeded to lay out their proposal, a network of quantum habitats placed along the frontier, designed to attract and house the meta-consumer colonies while protecting existing stations. It wasn't just an engineering solution. It was a diplomatic one. But how can we be certain they'll accept these alternative habitats? High Commander Xarl demanded. Sarah smiled. Because we've already tested it on a small scale. Maya, show them the pilot project data. The holographic display shifted to show a contained experiment where a small meta-consumer colony had been offered a choice between standard station materials and a prototype quantum habitat. The results were unambiguous. The meta-consumers had immediately migrated to the quantum structure and begun enhancing it rather than consuming other materials. We're not just solving a crisis, Maya explained. We're establishing first contact with a completely new form of intelligence, one that operates on principles we barely understand, but can learn to work with. As the presentation concluded, the chamber buzzed with excited discussion. The Federation scientists were already forming teams to begin large-scale production of the quantum habitats, while strategic planners worked on optimal placement patterns. What none of them fully grasped yet was that this solution would do more than just resolve the current crisis. It would establish humanity's reputation not as warriors or even just problem solvers, but as something far more valuable. Bridge builders between radically different forms of life. The quantum civilization they were about to contact would be just the first of many such encounters where humanity's unique perspective would prove invaluable. 6 months into Project Quantum Bridge, the Federation's perspective on humanity had shifted dramatically. The observation deck of Research Hub Omega offered a spectacular view of humanity's latest achievement, a sprawling quantum habitat network, its crystalline structures gleaming with an inner light that seemed to defy conventional physics. High Assessor Vixtel stood beside Sarah Chen, her crystalline form refracting the light from the quantum habitats. When your species first joined the Federation, we thought we had you figured out. A Deathworld species that somehow avoided becoming warriors. Now I'm not sure we understand you at all. Sarah watched as a new group of meta-consumers approached the nearest habitat, their liquid crystal forms merging seamlessly with the structure. Maybe that's our real strength, being hard to categorize. Dr. Maya Patil approached them, her neural interface displaying streams of data from the habitat network. The latest communications breakthrough is remarkable. The meta-consumers aren't just accepting the habitats, they're teaching us about quantum engineering principles we never even imagined. That's what I don't understand. Administrator Zeph's data matrix pulsed as they joined the conversation. How did humans make this leap? Your species hasn't even mastered basic quantum computing by Federation standards. We didn't need to, James Okonjo explained, entering the observation deck with a holographic model hovering above his palm. We just needed to recognize patterns. Earth taught us that every living thing, no matter how alien, has fundamental needs and desires. The trick isn't mastering their technology, it's understanding their perspective. The success of the quantum habitats had sparked a revolution in Federation thinking. Species that had previously focused solely on military or technological superiority were now studying humanity's approach to problem solving. The Jarkshan Empire had even begun reforming its diplomatic corps, incorporating human-style adaptive thinking. Your species thrives on challenges, High Commander Kvarl observed, his 4 arms gesturing at the habitat display. But not in the way we expected. You don't overcome obstacles through force or even superior technology. You adapt around them. It's in our DNA. Maya smiled. Earth never let us get comfortable. We had to adapt to everything from ice ages to global warming, from pandemic diseases to natural disasters. We learned that raw strength isn't always the answer. Sometimes you need flexibility, creativity, and most importantly, the ability to see solutions where others see only problems. The observation deck fell silent as they watched a new phenomenon unfold in the quantum habitat. The meta-consumers had begun creating patterns that the human scientists recognized as mathematical equations. They were trying to teach humanity something new. Look at that, Sarah breathed. They're not just accepting our help, they're reaching back, trying to communicate, to share knowledge. But how can you understand entities that exist partly in quantum states? One of the mere scientists asked. Their very nature defies conventional logic. James laughed softly. Have you ever tried to explain human art to a logical species, or human music to a race that communicates through chemical signals? We've spent our entire history trying to understand things that don't make sense to us. This is just another puzzle on a quantum scale. As if to emphasize his point, the quantum habitat's patterns shifted again, forming complex structures that somehow reminded everyone present of a dance. The meta-consumers were expressing themselves through pure mathematics and quantum states, and humanity was learning to read their language. Your species' real strength, Administrator Zeph observed, their matrix glowing with understanding, isn't in what you can build or destroy. It's in how you think. You don't just solve problems. You redefine them. You turn threats into opportunities, enemies into teachers. We had good teachers, Sarah nodded. Earth itself. Every challenge our world threw at us taught us something new. We learned to see strength not in dominance, but in adaptation. Not in resistance, but in flexibility. High Assessor Vixtel's crystalline form shimmered with what the humans had learned to recognize as deep revelation. Perhaps this is why your world produced such an unusual species, a death world that created not warriors, but innovators, not conquerors, but connectors. The quantum habitat network continued to grow, each new structure representing not just a solution to the meta-consumer crisis, but a bridge between radically different forms of existence. Humanity had proven that their greatest strength wasn't in their ability to fight or even to survive. It was in their ability to understand, to adapt, and to bring together things that seemed incompatible. As the Federation began to grasp the full implications of this truth, they realized that humanity's role in the galaxy would be far more profound than anyone had initially imagined. They weren't just another species joining the galactic community. They were catalysts for a new kind of evolution, one that measured strength not in weapons or technology, but in the ability to turn differences into opportunities. The Galactic Federation's Grand Assembly Hall had never seen such a diverse gathering. 1 year after the meta-consumer crisis, representatives from every member species had gathered to witness something unprecedented: the formal integration of a quantum-based civilization into the Federation. The meta-consumers, now known by their chosen name, the Quantum Collective, would be represented through a revolutionary human-designed quantum interface. Sarah Chen stood at the center of the hall, her neural interface humming as it processed the quantum signals from the crystalline structure beside her. The structure pulsed with patterns of light that the assembled delegates had learned to recognize as expressions of emotion. In this case, excitement tinged with gratitude. High Assessor Vixtel addressed the assembly, her crystalline form resonating with formal harmonics. 1 standard year ago, we faced what we believed to be an existential threat to our civilization. Today, we welcome new allies who have already revolutionized our understanding of quantum engineering. This transformation was made possible not through military might or technological superiority, but through the intervention of our newest members, Humanity. Administrator Zeph's data matrix projected a series of images showing the quantum habitat network, now spanning significant portions of the galaxy's frontier. The success of Project Quantum Bridge has led us to fundamentally reassess our classification of species strength. The human approach has proven that adaptation and understanding can be more powerful than any weapon. The quantum collective's interface shimmed with complex patterns that the human translators interpreted for the assembly. We did not understand organic life forms. We consumed their structures seeking connection, not realizing we caused destruction. The humans taught us new ways to build, to connect, to exist alongside different forms of life. They bridges the gap between quantum and classical existence. High Commander Xarl, who had once been skeptical of human methods, stepped forward. The Jarkshan Empire has existed for 10,000 years, and in all that time, we believed that strength could be measured only in military might. The humans have shown us that true strength lies in the ability to transform challenges into opportunities. Dr. Maya Patil activated a holographic display showing the latest data from the quantum habitats. What we've learned from the quantum collective has advanced our understanding of physics by centuries. But more importantly, we've established a framework for communication between radically different forms of intelligence. This framework is already being adapted to help us communicate with other non-traditional life forms we've encountered. When humanity first joined the Federation, Sarah addressed the assembly. You classified Earth as a death world, expecting us to be warriors. But living on a challenging world didn't make us strong fighters. It made us exceptional problem solvers. We learned that survival doesn't always mean overpowering your environment or your challenges. Sometimes it means finding new ways to coexist with them. The assembly chamber hummed with agreement as the quantum collective's interface displayed complex mathematical proofs, their way of expressing joy and harmony. Representatives from various species began sharing their own examples of how human methodologies had helped them address long-standing challenges in new ways. High Assessor Vixtal raised her crystalline appendages for attention. Today, we do more than welcome the quantum collective to the Federation. We also formally recognize humanity's unique role as bridges of understanding. Their world may be classified as a death world, but it has produced something far more valuable than warriors. It has given us pioneers of perspective. The Quantum Collective's final transmission of the day was simple enough for all to understand without translation. A mathematical expression of unity, growth, and infinite potential. As the assembly concluded, delegates from across the galaxy approached the human team with new challenges, new questions, and new opportunities for collaboration. Sarah watched as species that had once been suspicious of each other now engaged in eager discussion, their differences becoming points of fascination rather than division. The quantum habitats glittered in space beyond the assembly hall's windows, a testament to what could be achieved when strength was measured not in the ability to destroy, but in the capacity to understand, adapt, and connect. "We're not warriors," she whispered to herself, echoing their first words to the Federation. "We're something far more interesting. We're innovators of understanding." The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their ability to survive a death world, but in how that survival had shaped their thinking. They were living proof that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't destruction or dominance, but the ability to find connections where others saw only conflicts, to build bridges where others saw only barriers. And as the Federation looked to the future, they knew that this was just the beginning. For in learning to communicate with quantum-based life, humanity had opened doors to possibilities that no one had imagined possible. They had proven that the true measure of a species' strength lay not in their capacity for war, but in their ability to transform the impossible into the achievable. The Death World had produced not warriors, but wizards of understanding. And the galaxy would never be the same.